Good evening, everyone, and we are back with Amrita today, who has this magical sort of a world of her own where she talks about art. And this is something, Amrita, I'm very bad with. I can just draw lines and squares and all of that. So, this is a very fascinating topic, and I'm looking forward to your interaction with our community today. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Deepthi. Absolutely. Actually, art is everyone's, it's a part of everyone's life. And because being human, we tend to put things in boxes. Sometimes we think that it is not ours. It is the first instinct we have, and it is actually integrated to everything we do. So, hopefully, going through this, and I hope everyone likes the conversations and they can just sit back, relax, and just take it, soak it in, because that's the best way for teaching to happen, experiencing things and learning and sharing. So the I what I'm talking about today, I'd like to share the screen. Is that all right, Deepthi?
Yes, absolutely. We look forward to your discussion here.
Yes, and everyone's welcome to actually question me, but let's wait till the end of the webinar because perhaps a lot of your questions might be answered within it. And before I start, I really have to thank Deepthi and everyone in the team of Mahatattva. When they began their journey, at that point of time, when I saw their aspirations and the kind of work they were doing, I felt almost, integrally aligned to them. And I've been looking for chances to work with them and be with them and kind of help create that next world we are looking forward to, right? So, without taking too much of your time, I will now share your screen. So, here you go.
We are very fortunate to have you today, Amrita. And
Thank
yes, you are
you.
right. You were with us right from the beginning,
Yeah.
and today is something that our community was looking forward to, and lots of our schools are joining in. So look forward to your
Yes,
presentation today.
I'm also very happy to actually be part of this. So I hope everyone can see our screen, the screen, and I'm going to now start. The point of making this particular webinar happen was because in between all the learning and the teaching which we do, which is a transformative process, we sometimes there are certain sensitive elements and gaps which we could perhaps fill with a little bit of our own creative instinct. So I'm hoping that while you go through this webinar, you will be able to see some associations which you can connect with your lives, your professions, your careers, and perhaps with your own instincts and your pedagogies, you could work it out. And, because art allows for uniqueness, and that is where the future of the world lies. So we will go forward. So the webinar today is called Cultural and Social Consciousness through Applied Art Education Across Subjects. I'm not going to go too much into the technicals of it because I want you to soak it in, to internalize, and to see how you could, as an individual, effect impact, positive impact through that. And that is how teaching is most effective. So let's go ahead with this. So, coming from a space of, what art is all about, why is it important? Why do we really need it? Can't we just have a hobby? And are there only people who are talented in drawing who would be artists or creative people? The answer actually is no. Everyone is creative. When we start, we actually are drawing and sketching, etc., but we do it in our own ways. And then society wants a certain structure out of it, because it is important for it to function a certain way. And in that, we get lost with all the creative streaks which we have, and we never explore them again. But it is one of the most important things for anyone to move into the future. So the UN has set up certain sustainability goals, of which art is an integral part. So I'm not going to read out everything, but I'm just going to try and make you have a sense of this. So the UN sustainability goals, the first one is poverty, right? No poverty. So the whole idea is that if you want a free world and you want an evolving world, the only way it is possible is through creative thinkers. Yes, as much as the creative thinkers are required, so are the people who create that foundation of structure. So are mathematicians, science, maths, all these guys who are working on ground. But creativity is part of it, and it's not exclusive to the creative people. It is something I'm hoping by the end of this webinar you will realize is a very big part of you which you did not see. So the first UN sustainability goal talks of no poverty. So the whole idea is to create cultural ecosystems. You as an individual can and have the power to actually empower that change in your classroom with your thoughts, the way you present yourself, and the way you are with your children. And when they know, because children learn through association, even adults learn through association and experience. But when they can understand that you give respect to creative ecosystems, there will be a chance that they will get into these creative ecosystems. And what happens with that is, it's, for any system to function, you need a certain financial viability. The more the future children of tomorrow get into or associate with or appreciate creative ecosystems, the more it will prosper, because then there will be a financial trade within it also. This has been the loftiest thing which we had to work on. And as also when we work on philanthropy, the biggest work which is done is actually through art, because it stays over generations. It is one of those mediums which will hit your soul, your spirit, your consciousness, and will move you, will help you critically think about things, and will give you diverse perspectives without judgment. Now, coming to the next goal which we have is good health and well-being. Through the pandemic, we have seen that without art, it would have been very difficult for most people to even go through their daily lives. And I have some very nice experiences with it, where I basically work with the foundation as the associate vice president, and we work on Indian contemporary art. Large monumental sculptures is one of the things we are known for across the country. What we decided to do while the pandemic was happening was a nationwide art contest open to all, in on certain issues. And you should have seen the kind of artworks which came, because when people start thinking and internalizing, it's not just decor which is coming out, it's not just decoration. It is an extension of their lives, the things they think, feel, see around us. And the more we communicate that with each other, the better it is for whatever we are doing, whichever subject we are touching, whichever part of our lives we want to make grow. The third thing is quality education. Now, that is something, Deepthi is well versed with, and is also going to agree with, is the fact that when we talk about quality education, a few years back, we started with the whole thing of STEM, which was basically integrating the arts within, these sciences and what we technically would have thought of non-humanities subjects. But if anyone has forgotten, let me please remind you that the biggest mathematicians, the biggest scientists, the biggest technical brains you could think about in the world all had creative characteristics with them. And all of them, so for example, when the Wright brothers were trying to fly the first plane, the drawings, etc., it was a flight of imagination from which concrete reality happened. To do that, there is no other way but through art. Now, coming to industry and innovation and infrastructure, which is the fourth UN sustainability goal, which we are looking at when we look at art, is basically innovation. Any sort of futuristic innovation, any sort of solution requires you to be creative. So that means the children you teach, they should be empowered enough to see a situation and to be able to creatively take the flights of fancy and work through that into the next kind of a platform which allows them to solve those solutions realistically. Okay, now we'll come to why is art important. Okay, so I'm just going to open this. Uh, so basically, when we are talking about art, there's a lot which is happening beyond what you see. It is actually the creator of cultural consciousness. It is changing the way we think, feel, and know the world. Now, I want to touch on, I'm going to try and touch a few questions because these are questions most people have in their head, and they feel that there is not, there's no direct alignment to your subjects, etc. When you look at what you're doing with art. But when you understand what is behind what art does, then you will understand how you can actually propel your own work through art. So I'm just the second one.
आइए 10 गुना बेहतर stain removal and 2 months long lasting shine. Urban Company Professional Cleaning Service.
Okay.
You might think there was a simple answer to this. After all, we know how to say what most things are for, like this or that. And people flock to museums like never before, so they must have their motives. But when it comes to art, people get strangely afraid to ask too directly what it might all be for. Because, well, everyone except you might know the answer already. It's perhaps too obvious, it's perhaps too complicated. The result is an awkward silence and a lot of confusion. But maybe it shouldn't be that hard to say what art is for. Maybe we can have a go at ascribing certain rather clear purposes to art. Here's 5 things that art might be able to do for us. It's an obvious but striking fact that the most popular works of art in the world show pretty things, happy people, flowers in spring, blue skies. This is the top-selling postcard in the world from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. This enthusiasm for prettiness worries serious types a lot. They wonder, have people forgotten what life's really like? But that seems a misplaced worry. We need pretty things close to us, not because we're in danger of forgetting the bad stuff, but because terrible problems weigh so heavily on us that we're in danger of slipping into despair and depression. That's why prettiness matters. It's an emblem of hope, which is an achievement. Prettiness, those flowers and blue skies and kids in meadows, is hope bottled and preserved, waiting for us when we need it. The world often requires us to put on a cheerful facade, but beneath the surface there's a lot of sadness and regret that we can't express from fear of seeming weird or a loser. One thing art can do is reassure us of the normality of pain. It can be sad with and for us. Some of the world's greatest works of art have been loved for their capacity to make the pain that's inside all of us more publicly visible and available. Like putting on a sad piece of music, somber works of art don't have to depress us. Rather, they can give us the welcome feeling that pain is part of the human condition. Art fights the false optimism of commercial society. It's there to remind us with dignity that every good life has extraordinary amounts of confusion, suffering, loneliness, and distress within it. And that therefore we should never aggravate sadness by feeling we must be freakish simply for experiencing it quite a lot. All of us are a little unbalanced in some way. We're too intellectual or too emotional, too masculine or too feminine, too calm or too excitable. The art we love is frequently something we're drawn to because it compensates us for what we lack. It counterbalances us. When we're moved by a work of art, it may be because it contains concentrated doses of qualities we need more of in our lives. Perhaps it's full of the serenity we admire but don't have enough of. Perhaps it's got the tenderness we long for, but that our jobs and relationships are currently lacking. Or perhaps it's suffused with a pain and drama we've had to stifle but want to get in touch with. Sometimes a whole society falls in love with a certain style in art because it's trying to rebalance itself, like France in the late 18th century that wanted David as a corrective to its decadence, or Britain in the 19th century that looked to the pre-Raphaelites to counter the effects of brutal industrialization. The art a country or a person calls beautiful gives you vital clues as to what's missing in them. It's in the power of art to help us be more rounded, more balanced, and more sane. The media is constantly giving us hints about what's glamorous and important. Art also tells us about what's glamorous and important, but fortunately, given that you weren't invited again to the Oscars this year, it usually picks on some very different things. Albrecht Dürer makes grass look glamorous. John Constable draws our attention to the skies. Van Gogh reminds us that oranges are worth paying attention to. Marcel Duchamp challenges us to look again at the seemingly mundane. These artists aren't falsely glamorizing things that are better ignored. They're justly teasing out a value that's been neglected by a world with a deeply distorted and unfair sense of what truly matters. Art returns glamour to its rightful place, highlighting what's genuinely worth appreciating. Nothing seems further from good art than propaganda, the sort encouraging you to fight or what government to support. But one way to think about art is that it is a sort of propaganda, in the sense of a tool that motivates and energizes you for a cause, only it's propaganda on behalf of some of the most important and nicest emotions and attitudes in the world, which it uses its skills to make newly appealing and accessible. It might be propaganda about the simple life, or about the need to broaden one's horizons, or about a more playful, tender approach to life. It's a force that stands up for the best sides of human nature and gives them a platform and an authority in a noisy, distracted world. For too long, art's attracted a little too much reverence and mystique for its own good. In its presence, we're like someone meeting a very famous person. We get stiff and lose our spontaneity. We should relax around it, as we already do with music, and learn to use it for what it's really meant for, as a constant source of support and encouragement for our better selves.
So coming back to it, well, the whole idea of making you see this was for you to understand that art is not always just decoration or beautiful paintings or anything sad. Art could be anything, but it is about what it is talking about, what it is connecting with you, and you can always have different answers, and that allows for dialogue. So it is not just about one medium, or it is not decor. You're going beyond it. So when you are in your classrooms or you are looking at something, try and see it from a creative perspective, and maybe incorporate. If you go, there's a lot of stuff on the net. You can incorporate a lot of work from art. You can perhaps quote on classic paintings, get prints, etc., and work with people. I'll give you an example. When I was teaching in Sanskriti School, the French department had a French day, and we were thinking what to do. And because we never thought anything was out of our zone, what we did was, the French department and us, we actually, Sura is a painter and he works with Pointillism. Pointillism is a style of working where you use colored dots to paint. So what we did is, between the French department and us, we formulated an activity which was both art and it was also French. And so, French history, the artist's history, was brought about, and the paintings were made by the students while they were talking about it. So it's a much more pleasurable way. It's a much more memorable way of doing something, and it's so experiential that a child can never ever forget. The other thing is that if you think ideas, it is important that you do think ideas, because anything, and you have to encourage the children sometimes to think ideas where you may not have the answers, and it is okay for you to not have the answers. But the question is, do we allow our children enough to think? Even if, so when they think, they need to give you, what happens is their critical thinking powers and their analytical thinking powers are improved. But in doing that, they're also creating a vision in their head for the next future which is to come, from where they will perform certain actions which will become the future tomorrow as reality. So it is important that we give them those bridges where they are able to think diverse perspectives. The biggest thing which you do, I mean, if you ever want to stop wars or conflicts, is to encourage art in society. And that is one of the key things which I think, we have put on the side, thinking of it as a hobby or just decoration or just, drawing is only for a few. No, you encourage it and put it within your system. It's easy for you to do it when you start thinking that way. It's about making a shift in your own thoughts and allowing for a certain kind of experience which is not structured but has a certain organic value as well. Okay, so some ways of, I'm just going to give you some examples, some ways of integrating art. It's very simple. So this is an exercise called See, Think, and Wonder. What you do is, whichever classes there are, in whichever subject you're working at. So for example, if you're doing maths, and you could, of course, with geometry, etc., you could use art. You could talk about the Tower of Pisa and the angles and things like that. You could do work with destinations, but the whole idea is that you could also take things out of history, especially humanities subjects. You can connect art, literature, history, etc. together. There's another aspect of art which most of us have not thought about, is the performance arts. Now, performance arts is using the body and any movement to suggest something. So maybe if you're trying to do say a historical movement you're trying to teach, maybe you could bring about paintings from those eras and have them look at it, okay? And then you ask them to see the work, and then you say, okay, you see, and then you think about it. You give them time, give the children time to think about it, and then they have to come up with lines which are about what they wondered when they thought about it. It was a different era they were never in. So when they look at it from that space, they will have their own ideas. And then there is something which history is speaking of. So what it will do is it will allow for diverse perspectives, it will allow for critical thinking and learning from each other. I'm just going to open this. I will not do the whole video, but just to give you an idea of what has been done.
Okay, well, the children are studying human rights at the moment. And the reason that I wanted to use the routine of I see and I wonder is because I wanted to give the children an opportunity to look at situations where children didn't have their rights. The beauty of this routine is that it forces the children to slow down and to really look at what the pictures see and to focus on what is it that they really see. And then they can wonder about what that might mean. It stops them from drawing conclusions too quickly. Yesterday we looked at the conventions of the right of the child, and today we're going to carry on looking at that. The way that I want to do it is I want to give you some photographs to look at, and I want you to use a routine. I want you to use the routine we've used before. I see and I wonder. Okay, this is right. I've got a picture here, and it's not one that actually anybody's going to use. It's just one that I chose to show you now. Okay, so if we were to say, what do you see? What are the kinds of things that you might say about this? Alex?
Children saluting.
Children? You can see that they've got their hands up and they're saluting. Very good. Hyungjun?
I see a blackboard over there.
Okay, you see a blackboard. Is there any writing on the blackboard?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some writing on the blackboard. Miller?
Flag.
A flag?
I
Yeah.
see a girl dressed like a maid.
Okay, now look what you notice. You say dressed like a maid, but what is it about the girls' dresses that you notice?
They're old.
They're old.
They're old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned. Okay, and what is it about them that makes you say that they're old-fashioned?
Because we don't wear those dresses nowadays.
Okay.
We wear like these kind of modern clothes.
What do you think might be going on with those children?
Singing. The saluting.
They seem to be saluting. So that's another one of I see, isn't it? I see them saluting. So I see a group of children. I see them saluting.
Maybe they're in an assembly or something.
Jin?
I wonder if they're singing their national.
Okay, now why would you say?
They're looking at the flag and then they're going like this.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this part, and then when we've all think that we've finished with this part, we're going to come together as a whole class again, and we're going to discuss what we found out about the different rights.
So as you can see, it's a very simple exercise, but you can carry it through all grades. It is not just for the primary school or just till grade 5 or 6. You can actually do this in the levels at which the children understand and look at things, and you will find that the connections they need to make with the past and the future are much more clearer, and you will have some sort of a work ahead where you have involved those very minds who are active into participating with you because you put art in front of them. And the responses will come, but it has to be done in a sensitive way so as to encourage and delve questions and answers out of them. The other another way of doing getting children involved in whichever subject, whatever you're doing, you could use this technique called I used to think, I now think. So for example, if you have something, say you talk about, say, ancient history, right? So you think about, you put a cave painting in front of them and you say, okay, I'm looking at this, and even like chemistry, right? So compositions of things. So earlier they used to make it from ground rock. The colors would come from ground rock, and that was more sustainable than what we have as acrylic, which we use as a medium nowadays to paint our automotives, this, that, and the other. So making them think about the environment, making them think about how material has worked over ages and what is it doing to them, and how is it impacting the way they have things around them, because everyone likes good things around them. And the consciousness of what are you doing? Are you choosing a plastic frame over a wood frame? Are you doing those little things? So whatever you have in your mind, which you want the children to kind of experience, understand, and be sensitive to, use art as your encyclopedia. Use use the different references. Try and see if you can make and connect the dots. You will find that the rest of it they will do on their own and get back to you. So I used to think, I now think. So you make them write something on what they used to think, which would be the beginning of what you show them. And then after your discussion, when you say, okay, now you say what do you now think about it? You have a discussion about it and then make them write. Then you compare the notes. You will find that there is an increase in analytical thinking, in problem solving solutions, and getting to be more sensitive of a people, of lives and cultures they have no idea about. Now let's go to the third one. The third example to be used very clearly is, use different forms of art. Sometimes you can use performance art. You can put a hat on the head and kind of perform. If you're talking about kings, you could be, the different kinds of turbans, etc. You could be using anything you like to actually, get across your points, to make them feel and experience the world, which is not there right now. So the whole thing allows for involvement. It allows that for the core content to be understood, and the memory power of these things, the recall is very high. So let me just share a picture.
Let's keep that good concentration going.
They cleared land by cutting down forests.
All four turn out, one big chop. Good job. Because our students use the arts to deepen their understanding, they remember content for a longer period of time, and they're able to use their voice, their body, their art skills to demonstrate knowledge in a way that is fun.
Go. Having the arts as a core part of our academic program was critical to our founders. We see the arts as important for two reasons. One is because they are beautiful and joyful in and of themselves. But the other reason is we think that kids can arrive at new understandings about other content areas through their work in art.
You want to be thinking about colors.
Students are either integrating social studies content with an arts discipline or science content with an arts discipline. the art staff and classroom teachers look at the guiding questions, what the big ideas are. So there's just a lot of discussion, a lot of collaboration.
The 4 forces help an airplane to fly. This semester, our expedition is about the physics of flight. The goal is for students to learn about how airplanes fly in the air.
Our problem is people at the National Airport don't understand the physics of flight, even though they are about to get on planes. We're going to put up art at the airport so people can know what the 4 forces of flight are, like lift, gravity, dust, and drag.
Thinking about using our 4 forces, we can use paintbrushes. We can even do a little bit of pouring. So we begin with Jackson Pollock and some of his artwork. The kids realize pretty quickly that he's using the 4 forces. They see him using gravity and thrust in his really active style of painting, and they start trying it out. And what force will you be using as you're pouring?
Gravity.
So yet when you poured it, it didn't just go out into the air.
Gravity put it down.
That was gravity.
Jackson Pollock used forces like drag because when there was a big puddle of paint and some paint went through the big blob of paint, it slowed down because that blob of paint was bigger.
That is so cool.
All right, good job. It's really just about making those abstract concepts concrete. What if we do a little bit of this?
I like art and science, so I'm doing 2 things I like to learn how something works.
You guys had a great contribution.
So just some examples of what you can do, and it's actually very, very personal and how you will take it through. But my idea is to help you accumulate a few of these, takeaways, so you can gestate them within yourselves and understand from your own point of view your ground level realities and the kind of children you have, because every child is unique. You want to be able to suit it to the class as well. So you will be able to do that with art, because art allows for everyone's inclusion within it. Now I'm just going to play another video for you to see. This is actually to open out everyone's minds.
There's a deep desire in us to make pictures. I mean, they've been drawing for 30,000 years. The teaching of drawing is teaching people to look. That's what it's doing.
It was really when I was at art school that I started to see the relationship between history, philosophy, politics, and art. Prior to that, I thought that art was just making pretty pictures. Actually, art is connected to, life.
You can't teach art in the same way you can teach French. French exists whether you do it or not. But when you're doing art, the center of doing art is in yourself. Most of the literate subjects do not ask that of them. So this develops an entirely different realm of skill.
Creativity is critical thinking. And without it, how are you going to really open up and ask harder questions? And art opens all of those kind of passages and possibilities to think beyond what we already know.
In a child's education, that doors need to be open to other universes, other modes of thinking. And art is a non-prescribed, dangerous world full of possibility. And I think it's a vital space for children to have in the formative years of their education.
From a top-down level, you don't have innovation if you don't have arts. It's as simple as that.
It doesn't matter if you're going to study history or geography or science, you still need to be creative, because the people who are the outliers in those fields are the most creative people. To have art in schools be eroded, which is happening at the moment, is disastrous for Britain, I think, because our best industry is the creative industry.
Art and cultural production is at the very center of what makes a society what it is. And for an entire new generation not to know what is the cultural and visual history of ourselves is kind of denying our own identity.
art is a reflection of the society that we are, the kind of mirror that art holds up, the way that art helps define the identity of a nation, that you can trace that back historically. It's deeply embedded in humanity.
What art education does to people who are not going to be artists is giving them the opportunity to build certain aspect of themselves that otherwise will be either ignored, undeveloped, or repressed.
It's all about kids finding out who they are, and they're all different.
That you can be whatever you want to be is something that art certainly taught me. It can access a part of your brain, body, spirit, mind that nothing else can.
Nothing is more stimulating, exciting, consoling than looking at a brilliant painting.
Art in schools shouldn't be sidelined. I think it should be right there, right up in the front, because I think art teaches you to deal with the world around you. It's the oxygen that actually makes all the other subjects breathe.
There's a great quote by John Ruskin: art shows us what it is to be human. And really that's why art should be on the curriculum.
So, very important, interesting thoughts there, which actually take you to the next level. So when your perspective shifts, you will see that the children you teach, their perspective will also shift. So it's about passing your energy and your understanding of life through, and the other way around. So it's an interesting way in how art makes that happen in a very quiet kind of space. But coming to something else, now this is something which is very important, and I think you can actually, some of you could also go into courses of design thinking. Now, design thinking is something which has come in this. It's not a very old thought process. It is currently being applied to everything, from businesses to education. And it's an alternative approach of looking at life and to be able to find solutions. And it is based, and it actually originated in art, architecture, and design. And from those, from the understanding of those subjects, this has been applied to many, many, many fields. So in the teaching learning process, it is basically helping natural creativity and innovation happen, whether it's your students or whether it is you yourself, to the next degree. So, so design thinking basically, and this is, Harvard actually propels this thinking now as a main, even MIT, as a main way of having the next geniuses. So, because we already know the world we are in, we need to find innovative ways of living in that world, of being able to find solutions to big problems in a creative way. Design thinking, which is coming straight from art, is about that. So how you approach it is, first, there is the approach to learning is inclusive. You have both the teacher and the student together as a collaborative, and then you sit and problem solve together. In this, what you do is you identify challenges, you pull in the information which you get, you find potential solutions together, and in that process, you are looking at ideas, but there is no idea which is stupid, or no solution, however far-fetched, which you put off the table. It can be flights of fancy and imagination which are crazy, but put them on your file, and then you find those ideas, you refine those ideas, and then find the solutions. And it has been implemented very, very effectively to find solutions which otherwise we would never have been able to find, whether it is in education, whether it is in practical life. So it's a very simple steps. There is basically, you empathize with what you're talking about, the subject you're talking about, the core content. Then you design on it. You design on it means basically you apply not just your mind, but your creative juices in thinking about varied ways of that problem, or that particular idea you're thinking about. You ideate on it, get different perspectives on the table, and then find fresh solutions. Once those solutions are found, which sometimes may be looking like they cannot be real. Put them on the table and then make a prototype and test it, and you'll find your solution. Let me just take you through a short video on that.
Sarah is giving her used bike to her younger sister, Mara. Her bike works just fine, but needs a refresh. The seat was chewed on by their new puppy and is uncomfortable. A group of Mara's friends are in an after-school program that's teaching them technical skills. They want to make a more comfortable seat for Mara's new bike and are ready to use design thinking to empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test to get the new seat just right. To empathize, they interview Mara about her needs for a new bicycle seat. What does she like about her old seat? What are her preferences and priorities for a new seat? They watch her get on and off her old bicycle and the new bicycle. To further define their understanding about Mara and her new bicycle seat, they do some more research. They look closely at other seat designs of bikes parked at school. They take photos and they study different materials for padding and the seat frame cover. The team also gets on and off both bicycles. To ideate, they first discuss two approaches. Do they build a new seat frame or do they recover the old one? They also think about their opportunities and constraints, such as money, skills, and sources. The brainstorming begins. They generate a bunch of ideas for design, source of materials, and people to ask for help. They end up with a lot more questions, several sketches, and a list of tasks. They get lucky on their first task with a trip to a bicycle repair shop. They score different used seat frames that will fit the bike. The result is a long list of possibilities. Some are wild and crazy, and that's okay. During ideation, wild ideas are encouraged. The group has had a successful brainstorming session because they listened to all ideas, stayed focused on their topic, and didn't judge or shoot down anything. By following these rules, they were able to playfully and collaboratively take a deep dive into their bicycle seat problem. And they had a ton of fun while doing it. With their best ideas in mind, the group moves on to prototype. They decide to run trials of different combinations of seat padding materials, layers of wool, foam, sponges, a mix of materials. They also create model seat shapes of varying sizes in cardboard that they attach to the seat frames. To test, they ask Mara to sit on the padding samples and the model seat shapes attached to the seat frames. They ask a lot of questions and learn a lot of details that generate some new ideas for their next prototype. After several prototype iterations and testing for other considerations like durability and aesthetics, they create a fully functional prototype. Mara loves the new bike seat and asks if the seat cover could be her favorite color, yellow. Creating the perfect seat for Mara through design thinking took many hours, open minds, lots of teamwork, constructive chaos, and fresh ideas. The team had to be willing to fail often in order to succeed sooner. But they didn't stop there. After making Mara so happy with her perfect new bike seat, the team is inspired. They decide to start a community program to create bike seats for other kids in the community. Now they're making a positive impact on their community and making lots of kids happy too. So what will you do with design thinking?
So, as you can see, when you use art, you can actually change social consciousness. You can develop some sensitivities of the hardest of nuts to crack, if I can say that. So it's important that you incorporate something like this within what you're doing, because I understand that you have classes which have certain time periods and structures, but even within that, even if you could take one class a week where you could maybe spend 20 minutes on design thinking on a certain solution, just take one topic and start working on it. You will find that you will be able to do things which have not happened before, and your children will have, after all, schooling is about preparing them for life, and they will be prepared for life. They will have the courage to face the unknown on their own, because frankly speaking, tomorrow is an unknown space where we cannot go, but they will. So in creating ecosystems, it's important to have culture as the center point. It is not taking away from yourself.
When I ask people in Hamilton, what is culture? I get a lot of different answers. But what is it really? What is its value? And why does it matter? So where to start? I live in this city. It has roads, clean water, electricity, police stations, hospitals, schools, but every city has these. What makes Hamilton different? Well, this could be where culture comes in. Let's see. Festivals and events, a thriving art scene, stories and customs, a sense of history, cool architecture, creative talent, public art, and even outdoor places like parks, farms, and waterfalls. These are all considered to be part of culture. All of these things create activity and buzz, a positive energy known as cultural vibrancy. And this vibrancy helps to build community, define neighborhoods, and make the place we live in have a unique identity. It also leads to attachment. People that are attached to Hamilton want to live here. They get involved, and they talk about it. As the word spreads, people come, and businesses too. This attracts more people and then more businesses. Creative talent is drawn to Hamilton and is already 1/3 of the labor force and growing. I guess you could say that culture is all the things that make life in a place meaningful and interesting. It's valuable because it can promote identity, creativity, tourism, jobs, and growth. And it matters because it contributes to quality of life, creating attraction and attachment, revitalizing neighborhoods, transforming cities, and making communities attractive, open, welcoming, and vibrant. So if we take away culture, then what do we have left? Get culture. Love your city.
So as you can see, from the individual, from the classroom to the individual, to the community, to the city, and that's how it happens. And it will happen right from your class. It will happen from where you and your children decide to work together. I'm just going to share a few things. You already know this about art, so I'm just going to flip through them quickly because we don't have too much time. But basically, there's a direct relation between art and productivity. I've shared some paintings on the right and some images to give you an idea of how diverse art can also be. Yeah. Now we also have AI art and light art, etc. But that's for another session if I get the chance, because I can't cover everything in one time. But basically, the productive environment, a productive, nurturing environment can only be created from a creative space. So ensure that you yourself feel creative. You can and you can allow that to happen within your space. Allow for questioning to happen. Allow for children to be different, even if you don't like it, because that's where the genius stands, when they are uniquely identifying themselves, and also associating sensitively to society. They will be the most productive of all. And this is on the right is a Tayeb Mehta painting. It's a contemporary artwork from a famous Indian artist. So you can see it's a figure, but it's been made very differently. So art stimulates creativity. It allows you to think differently. It makes you wonder about things. In the beginning you think, what is this? Then you start associating. Then you start making layers of meanings and conversations with the works. And that is important for your mind to grow, for your creativity, for your instincts to grow. And here you have a classic Claude Monet. So it reduces stress. It allows people to feel themselves more, to introspect, to be in a space of meditation. It allows for communication. You can talk about art. There's nothing which is beyond this thing. There's no repression over there. And the fact is that you can converse with an artwork on your own, and it will talk back to you in the way it critiques society, etc., which otherwise if a person told you, you would not take in. But the art will allow the person to intrinsically actually have some sort of retrospection within. And going forward, what it also speaks about you. So the kind of art which you put around you, the kind of installations or groups of mediums and material you decide to play with and put around, just be playful with it, because that allows for something to happen. And the deepest instincts of human nature, the deepest knowings and associations from time immemorial, those will come into your work, and they'll talk about society. They'll talk about not just you, but the other person. But the other person is also in some ways a reflection of you. So in that sense, it is allowing for harmony also to happen. Here are a few examples across the world where people have done this in extremely business-like environments, where public art has become an integral part, and it's actually the center point. And the reason is not because it's peripheral, because they understand that their work will not happen if you do not have something which de-stresses you, something which makes you think creatively. They cannot have the innovative people of tomorrow if they do not have art around them. So even governments are doing this. So in this metro station, you have a light artwork over here, and there's a timepiece on top. So you see how it fits in and makes you think about time and reflect on time. Then you have, this is in London. There's this fence which also acts as a kind of a musical piece. You can have a performance art over it. And there's a building which has been filled with graffiti. So art is different kinds. There's a gallery which allows you to just look at art, reflect on it and move. There's also events which happen which are art. So you've seen this. I will go forward. Even like in nooks and crannies, even when you go on outdoor trips, you can actually make people think, feel, and know art. And yeah, this is another work which is there in an industrial space, where the colored bars, as you can see below, they light up at night because they've got reflective paint on it. Another place where if you see, the offices are just 4 of these red dots, but if you see the amount of art which is around, is actually quite a lot. So I'm just trying to help you understand that in the next world and in the world today, art is not peripheral, it is essential. It is the main thing people are talking about. Even when you look at CSR and CER activities, it is art which is the center point of changing people to be innovative, to create a tomorrow. Because we realize everything else can be done by robots. Okay, so these are a few works. If you look at your extreme right, there is a work by Andrew Burton. It's called The Chimney. It's inspired from, the brick kilns which we have in India, where we make the bricks. So yeah, it's inspired from that. It's a monument. It's a sculpture, but it is a contemporary take on the chimney. This is another place. So here you see children go into these spaces also. There's a reflective work here. And there is a theater, there's work with flags. So, and here's work from a very important artist, if you can see my screen here. His name is Anthony Gromley, and they've put his work also in those spaces. These are business spaces as well. But children from schools, etc., come there because you see, it's about experiencing things. It's about looking at different views of life. And from whichever subject you may come from, whether it's commerce, physics, science, chemistry, biology, history, etc. I think, a kind of a going with the children to some art place or bringing art to them will allow you to have conversations with respect to your subjects in a very novel way. And it will get you into a space which will allow for new thoughts and ideas from the children themselves. And you never know. I mean, you find a few geniuses in there. Okay, so this is the shed at Manhattan in New York. What it is a space which is on roller wheels, as you can see on the left here. And it is changed into a creative space. And so people get to have a certain kind of, de-stressing activity where there's art exhibitions, performance arts, etc., which happen. And they bring a certain sense of harmony. So this is the world we are looking at now. And these are transformative spaces. In the mornings, you would probably think these are, high-rise business district, but later it changes. This is what is happening in India. You have the Jindal Steel Works, which has recovered, restored a heritage. It does a lot of work in heritage properties. Hampi, it has, restored. And on top, there is a kind of a synagogue, which in Mumbai, which it has restored as well. These are just pictures. The Tata group of hotels also works on art. What it does is it brings about, it has been collecting the most important artists of our times, their works. Why? Because then it becomes a historical documentary of how lives were lived, 5 generations from now, when we are not there, maybe they will take lessons from these, and maybe they will connect with these, and then they will have their own evolution. I want to show you this. This you can actually do in your classrooms as well. Very interesting video. This is done by Google, but I think you'll enjoy this.
In Google's London office, we use pixel art to bring life to the building, using Post-its.
We have over 200 people that have contributed to at least one art piece.
I love pandas, so myself and my entire team worked on the panda emoji. It was a very good team bonding experience.
And we love it, and always showing it off to best when they come in as well. I look a little bit like Mr. T, but I quite like it.
The most important thing is how you peel the Post-it off of the pad. Turn it over and peel from the backside down at an angle. Then, when you stick it on the glass, it's very smooth.
I am making the 8-bit version of Link in the original Legend of Zelda. I find that when you're really stressed, you should go off and do something completely not related and have that kind of space out time.
There's a lot of video game related art, and for me, Calvin and Hobbes makes me happy every time I see it, and I thought that that might appeal to other people in the office.
It's a good way to team bond, it's fun culture.
It's creative, people enjoy their output.
It's wicked, it's so much fun.
Sorry. So, well, you know the rest of it. I mean, there's lots of stuff happening in art. Even when you're looking at branding now, people are looking at how art could be used more creatively in branding, and not just kind of posters. You're looking at a diverse environment, and you need art for that. There are a lot of studies over here. I mean, I don't have the time, but basically, you know, the biggest institutions, educational institutions, which are working across the world, are talking about how art has to be a center space for not just learning, but also for anyone who's getting into jobs, anyone who's looking at a brighter future tomorrow. So when you look at it from a professional career point of view also, it is very important for people to start thinking creatively, to be able to do what others would not have been able to do. So I'm just going to go through this so you have an idea of, you know, the kind of studies which have happened, and also give you an idea that this is not, we are actually talking serious stuff here. So, but with a lot of fun, and hopefully, you know, this has helped you see some of the insights, and I'm hoping that you will use your own creativity and come up with something which you think works with the children with you. But always, always, the key to any creative act is that you allow for freedom, you allow for responsible freedom, and you allow for uncomfortable questions to happen. You may not always have the answers, but it is okay. As long as you let them breathe and you let them find solutions with you, you will find that education will actually be very rewarding. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to go off.
This was like a, you know, an express train. You are so experienced. We'll need to see this video some 5 times to understand and take in and comprehend all that you have shown us today. So Amrita, that was really, really superb. You know, when we I love the Pollock activity with the gravity and the thrust, and you know, that was like, you know, you could actually imagine children, you know, getting onto the floor and doing that painting. So that was
messing
just
around while getting into it.
yes, absolutely. And
everything like this, like even any subject, it's just from the person's perspective. They have to open those doors and not feel that they cannot do art. They have to feel that they own it. Once they do, they find.
I think even friction, for that matter, you know, when you're doing the brushes and you're talking about the smooth surface and the rough surface, and that's like absolutely phenomenal. And you know, when we talk about civilizations peaking, it's always the arts which come out. You know, when civilizations are getting developed, it's only about food and, you know, where will I live and what will I do and how will I earn money for my family. And when civilizations actually reach their peak, you see beautiful paintings and art form and dances. So it's really phenomenal how this entire thing works. And arts, of course, are always there, but most people like me don't get it. So we have to rely on people like you. I can, because I know, I can get creative with my thoughts, but I don't. Yes. So, in international schools, when I was teaching in the UK and in the international schools, I remember doing Surah and relating it to the ICT lessons with Pointillism, pixels.
Yes, exactly what I was talking about with the French thing.
Absolutely. And then Paul Klee, doing polygons, looking at shapes. So the children just, get out of their shell, maths bahut ho gaya, shapes we've done enough. And then suddenly you get into Paul Klee and you do the, polygons and the shapes, and you create your own version of the Paul Klee. So I think that is something which we should integrate in our classrooms and get the passion, out, the emotions out from the children. And I really appreciate you pointing out design thinking as well. And you are aware of the design thinking for social change that Mahatattva does pan India. And the children are absolutely superb. They know how to look at things, how to empathize, how to test their prototypes, how to do different iterations, take feedback from the clients or whatever their project that they are working on. And our design thinking for social change products and prototypes have been totally phenomenal. And I'm so glad that you can talk about integrating art into that as well. So this was superb, Amrita. And we hope and pray you will give us some more time on another date.
I'm saying this on record. Anytime you need time from me or anything I can help you with or anything I can do for Mahatattva, I'm happy to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and talking to our community. There are lots of people on YouTube and Facebook watching us right now. And I don't know, for some reason, people prefer the YouTube. They prefer going on YouTube.
Even the reason is also because you get a variety of elements you're looking at, and it's easy to kind of draw. I think there's also this thing, looking at a certain kind, something similar will also come. So you will go deeper into this.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much, Amrita, and enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, they could always reach out to me on my email ID, which I think you guys have, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything.
Absolutely. So what we do, Amrita, we are going to put this video on record on our wall, and usually it's a running conversation, and people keep popping questions, and we try our best to get in touch with the expert and get those questions answered. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. See you everyone. Bye. Bye.